Take it from someone who's tried. If you want to read the complete history of Batman in comics and you don't want to do it digitally, you have your work cut out for you. Take a look at Comic Book Herald's complete Batman reading order, and you'll see an expertly curated list of a wide variety of collected editions, many of which have long since gone out of print and are no longer available at an affordable retail price. The journey through the history of the Bat in print collections hasn't felt especially achievable lately. All that is changing soon. With DC's 2024 focusing on a number of tangible efforts to make their comics more available and affordable, starting with this year's earlier compact classics, which took all-time great stories like Watchmen and All-Star Superman and packaged them into manga-sized digests for $9.99 a pop in the US. The collected efforts continue in late 2024 with DC Finest. That's what I'm here to talk with you about today. Complete your DC reading order with the DC Finest collections. Hey everybody, I'm Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of Comic Book Herald. If you like the Comic Book Herald YouTube channel, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting. We're going to go through DC Comics. Today's episode is brought to us by DC Comics, who sent me the 5 launch collection of DC Finest, which I will be giving my honest review today. You can find full DC and comic book reading orders on comicbookherald.com with links in the show notes, including the details around the DC Finest collections we're talking about today. DC Finest paperback editions are now available, representing DC's move into comprehensive collected editions for all their core characters, like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, the Justice League, and on and on. The collections launch in 2024 at $39.99 a piece for approximately 600 pages of comics. Unlike more familiar bestsellers in DC's line, like Batman Year One, which collects 4 issues, or All-Star Superman, which collects the must-read 12 issues from creators Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely, DC Finest collections represent a continuous collection of comics as they were released in publication order. This means each paperback collection gives you about 1 to 3 years of consecutive Batman or Justice League comics, warts and all. Now, this is a new wave for DC and fills a void they weren't really fulfilling in the book market for the real continuity-focused, gotta-have-it-all comics collector. The closest comp in DC was the old Showcase Presents line, which gave you about 500 pages of black and white comics for under $20 from 2005 to 2016, although these were limited to comics from DC's Silver Age between 55 and 1975. So DC Finest is more expensive, yes, but it's more comics in color from every era of the publisher's now 90-year history. Size-wise, each DC Finest collection is the exact length and width of a modern single-issue floppy comic, 10 inches by 7, with of course a much thicker spine, about 1 inch to accommodate its 600 pages. Don't worry, I'll show you the goods here in just a moment. What does this mean for the comics within each collection? Well, for Batman Year 1 and 2, you have 632 pages of comics collecting post-Crisis on Infinite Earths Batman from November 86 to October 1987, including, of course, Batman Year 1 by Frank Miller and David Mazzuchelli. So you're getting issues of Batman from 401 to 412, a Batman Annual number 11, and Detective Comics number 568 to 579. For Wonder Woman Origins and Omens, you get 580 pages of comics collecting Gail Simone, Terry and Rachel Dodson's run on Wonder Woman from October 2007 to October 2009. That's going to give you the run of Wonder Woman issues 14 to 35, as well as a couple oddball offshoots, Outsiders 5 of a Kind, Wonder Woman / Grace number 1, who could forget, and The Brave and the Bold number 7. For Supes, we go back to the Golden Age, the first superhero, 582 pages of comics collecting the original Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster Golden Age Superman from June 1938 to June 1940. This will give you Action Comics number 1 to 25, Superman number 1 to 5, and New York World's Fair Comics number 1. And the whole bunch of collections, they bounce from era to era. The Justice League comes in the 1970s, Bronze Age, with some early Crisis on Infinite Earths teases. It's worth noting, too, that in addition to the 5 launch titles I've received that will be available throughout November 2024, DC Finest already has a full projected 2025 release slate. I'm counting around 25 already listed, including these that I'm most excited for. Plastic Man, the origin of Plastic Man, which will collect Police Comics, number 1 to 36, which, as far as I know, not available on DC's digital streaming service right now, DC Universe Infinite. Peacemaker, Kill for Peace, collects a whole host all over the place issues throughout Fightin' 5, Suicide Squad, Checkmate, Eclipso, Showcase, then the Peacemaker Zone post-crisis 80s solo series, of course, capitalizing now on the excellent James Gunn-led TV show, Wonder Woman, The Legend of Wonder Woman. This is collecting the long out-of-print Legend of Wonder Woman by Kurt Busiek and Ramona Frieden. Or Trina Robbins, pardon me, mixing my female legends in the comic community. And then finally, the other one I'm most excited about, probably the strangest of the bunch, science fiction, The Gorilla World. Collects Action Comics number 183 to 196, Strange Adventures 35 to 48, Mystery in Space 16 to 22. This is the aspect of DC Finest that I'm most pleased to see at launch. There's a surprising and often exciting variety to the selected comics, giving shine to Metamorpho, Plastic Man, Jimmy Olsen's Giant Turtle era, and Gorilla World. This indicates a real commitment to the full breadth and possibilities of DC Comics. At the end of the day, these are the key questions to ask when considering a DC Finest collection. Do you want to read in print over digital? Would you like to own the full published history of your favorite characters instead of more curated selections of their best stories? Have you checked if a DC Omnibus already exists at a comparable price point that might give you a similar or expanded value? This is actually what I saw with the Wonder Woman option. You can find an Omni for about the same price for a few more comics right now. If the answers are yes, go ahead though and get excited about DC Finest. 50, 51, 52. Oh, hi there. Didn't see ya. Let me drop this massive weight. Ugh! And show you some DC Finest collections. Let's take a look here off the DC shelf at Batman Year 1 and Year 2 as promised. DC Finest. There's the Spinest. Let's show it compared to a DC Compact collection. As mentioned, here's the new DC Compact All-Star Superman you got right there. Morrison and Quietly. And then you got the Big Brother, the DC Finest, 600 pages compared. But honestly, both looking nice, looking relatively affordable as well. DC Finest, quite a bit bigger. You're going to get your 600 pages of Bat comics. You're going to get straight into some Year 1, some Year 2 action, all in color, all reprinted pretty nicely. Looks about the same as if you're reading it digitally, except, of course, you got that nice collection in your hand. The Batman Year 1, Year 2 experience is very interesting, at least to me, historically. Had read Batman Year 1 before, but otherwise had not read any of the comics in this collection. And it is a historical approach to understanding, like, what a massive sea change Miller and Mazzucchelli's Year 1 absolutely is. I mean, holy cow, when you're reading through this thing, and you get some nice Alan Davis Batman stuff in here, which I had not read before. You get a little Jim Starlin issue, right? Some classic creators doing Davis there with the wry, smiling Batman. And Jason Todd, look at that happy little tyke. That happy little Jason Todd tyke pre-Red Hood days. But then you get to the Miller Mazzucchelli Year flipping 1, and holy cow, is it a sea change? Holy cow, is it a creative progression? I mean, you read like hundreds of pages before you get to the 4 issues of Year 1 and by Miller and Mazzucchelli, and then it's just like, oh man, like this is what Batman comics are meant to be. It really signals what is going to be happening with Batman comics from this point forward, and it really makes it stand out, like how massively different, how influential that book would have been coming out in 86 and into 87 when you read everything around it, right? And then you get Batman Year 2 by Davis, Mike W. Barr, and Todd McFarlane later in this collection. Not an awful story by any measure, but you read it compared to Year 1, and in the aftermath and trying to pick up on what Miller and Mazzucchelli and the creative team here, you got, your colors by Richmond Lewis, your letters by Todd Klein. I mean, this is just special, special work. It's one of my 50 favorite comics of all time for good reason. And again, like reading it in context of what was coming out around it made me appreciate it even more, frankly. But if you're just a huge Bathead too, like you're going to enjoy seeing the early days of Jason Todd, just reading some good Batman stories. The Detective Comics annual in here, number 11, that's a nice one too. It's like Batman and Sherlock Holmes kind of homage to the detective eras and to them teaming up. But yeah, it's a nice looking volume. You get a whole bunch of comics, and as it says on the spine, you're covering 2 years worth of comics, right? 1986 to 1987. It's gonna look good on the shelf compared to other DC Finest initiatives. You can see compared to my other selections here, like my JLAs aren't even the same size, right, of the Morrison run that I'm collecting there. So you're not going to have it bouncing around on the shelf. It's going to stay the same size, look about the same. Again, it'll pair neatly with those DC Compact Classics, which, like I said, I didn't even need this. I didn't even need All-Star Superman. I already got a copy. Here I am buying this thing because it's only $10. And it looks nice. I'm not even here to plug this, but I love reading this puppy in the Manga Digest size. So there you have it. DC Finest in person, in print. Like I said, it's exactly the height and width of a floppy as well. This is your DC Finest, except, it's going to be quite a bit thicker and a lot more comics. So thanks to DC for sending those. I had a good time exploring them. Hopefully you've had a decent time here in my office sharing them with me. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to go back to lifting some giant weights. Thanks for listening, everybody, and enjoy the comics.